If you think you know all of Cuba, a vibrant island nation, think again. In this episode, we're diving deep into the lesser-known jaw-dropping realities that will completely change your perception of Cuba. Have you ever wondered what life is really like behind the colorful facade of Havana and the idyllic beaches? Are you curious about the hidden struggles and surprising truths that lie beneath the surface? Prepare to uncover astonishing secrets that are rarely seen by outsiders. From the intricacies of Cuba's dual currency system to the surprising realities of daily life and state control, this video will reveal the hidden side of Cuba that few. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, make sure to check it out for more shocking insights. And if you're intrigued by what you're about to learn, hit that like button, share this video with friends, and subscribe to our channel for more eye-opening content. Brain Times Dio, and get ready to be amazed by the hidden truths of Cuba. Number 21. Dual currency system. Cuba operates with a dual currency system, which involves two distinct currencies: the Cuban peso, PAP, and the Cuban convertible peso, CASAP. The Cuban peso, PAP, is primarily used by locals for everyday transactions, while the Cuban convertible peso, ACDAS, is utilized mainly by tourists and for imports. The Cuban convertible peso, CASDA, was introduced as a means to attract foreign investment and handle transactions related to tourism. It is pegged to the US dollar, and its value is significantly higher than that of the Cuban peso. This dual currency system creates a substantial economic divide between locals and visitors. For Cubans, the cup is often worth much less compared to the QT. As a result, the cost of goods and services that are priced in QCs can be prohibitively expensive for the average Cuban who earns and spends primarily in cups. This disparity extends to various aspects of daily life, including food, transportation, and housing, which can be priced significantly higher for tourists and businesses dealing in queues. The system also complicates economic planning and development, as it creates two separate economies within the same country. This division affects not only the cost of living, but also contributes to broader social and economic inequalities. Despite ongoing discussions and proposed reforms, the dual currency system remains a significant feature of Cuba's economic landscape. Are you surprised by the information above? You will undoubtedly be even more shocked by what you find following. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. Number 20. Country's knives and government surveillance. In Cuba, the government exercises extensive control over media and communication, employing rigorous surveillance measures to monitor public discourse and restrict access to information. This control extends across various forms of media, including print, broadcast, and digital platforms. The Cuban government maintains a tight grip on traditional media outlets, such as newspapers, radio, and television. State-run media is the primary source of news, and content is heavily censored to align with government perspectives and policies. Independent journalism faces significant hurdles, as reporting that diverges from official narratives is often suppressed. Digital communication is also closely monitored. Internet access is regulated, and online activity can be tracked by government authorities. Social media platforms and blogs that criticize the government or highlight issues that are sensitive to the state can be targeted for censorship or shut down. Dissidents, activists, and independent journalists who challenge the government or attempt to provide alternative viewpoints frequently face harassment. This can include intimidation, surveillance, and even imprisonment. The government's approach to dissent is aimed at stifling any opposition and maintaining control over the flow of information. As a result, many individuals are deterred from expressing dissenting opinions or engaging in independent journalism out of fear of retaliation. Do you think that the tight control imposed by the Cuban government is leading people to lose their freedom? Please share your own thoughts in the comment below. Number 19. Tourist zones. In Cuba, a notable feature of the tourism industry is the development of specific areas and services that are exclusively designated for tourists. These tourist zones are carefully curated to provide visitors with a range of attractions and luxury experiences, often set apart from local neighborhoods. Tourist zones typically include upscale hotels, high-end restaurants, and well-maintained attractions. They are designed to offer a high standard of service and comfort catering specifically to the needs and preferences of international visitors. For example, areas like Varadero Beach and Old Havana are renowned for their tourist-oriented infrastructure, including luxurious resorts and culturally rich sites that showcase the country's heritage in a polished, tourist-friendly manner. This focus on catering to tourists creates a marked contrast with the surrounding local neighborhoods. In many cases, these tourist zones are separated from residential areas by physical or economic barriers. While visitors experience a relatively affluent and well-maintained environment, local Cubans may live in more modest conditions with limited access to the same level of amenities. The distinction between tourist areas and local neighborhoods can also be seen in the services available. Tourists often enjoy access to imported goods and services that are not readily available to locals due to economic restrictions or supply shortage. This divide can lead to a perception of inequality, as the benefits of tourism are not always evenly distributed within the country. Furthermore, this disparity can create social and cultural tensions. The focus on maintaining an appealing image for tourists can sometimes overshadow the challenges faced by local residents, contributing to a sense of disconnect between the experiences of visitors and the realities of everyday life in Cuba. Number 18. Shortage of basic goods. Residents in Cuba often encounter significant shortages of basic goods, including essential items such as food, medicine, and other necessities. These shortages are primarily attributed to a combination of factors including the U.S. economic embargo and ongoing economic challenges within the country. The U.S. embargo, which has been in place since the early 1960s, plays a major role in restricting Cuba's access to a wide range of goods. The embargo imposes trade restrictions that limit Cuba's ability to import products from the United States, which affects not only food and medicine, but also other critical supplies. While the embargo has been adjusted over time, its effects are still felt throughout the Cuban economy. Economic challenges within Cuba exacerbate the problem. The country's centrally planned economy struggles with inefficiencies and shortages of foreign currency, which are necessary for importing goods. Supply chains are often disrupted, and local production cannot always meet demand. Additionally, Cuba's domestic industries face difficulties in producing sufficient quantities of essential items due to outdated technology and limited resources. As a result, Cubans frequently experience scarcity of basic necessities. Supermarket shelves can be sparsely stocked, and availability of food items can be inconsistent. Medical supplies, including prescription medications and basic healthcare products, are often in short supply, leading to difficulties for individuals requiring regular or urgent medical care. These shortages create considerable hardship for the Cuban population, as they must navigate long queues and rationing systems to obtain essential goods. The scarcity of items can also lead to inflated prices on the black market, where people often turn when official supply channels fall short. Housing shortage. Cuba faces a severe housing crisis, characterized by significant shortages and deteriorating living conditions. Many Cubans reside in aging colonial-era buildings that suffer from inadequate infrastructure and poor maintenance. The housing stock in Cuba includes a large number of historic structures, some dating back to the Spanish colonial period. While these buildings have architectural and cultural significance, many are in a state of disrepair. Issues such as crumbling facades, leaking roofs, and outdated plumbing are common. The age of these buildings, combined with a lack of resources for proper upkeep, results in challenging living conditions for many residents. The government has recognized the severity of the housing shortage, but has struggled to implement effective solutions. Economic constraints, including limited access to foreign investment and shortages of construction materials, have hindered efforts to build new housing or renovate existing structures. Additionally, the centrally planned economy has struggled with inefficiencies in housing allocation and construction projects. To address the crisis, the government has undertaken various initiatives, such as renovating certain historic properties and promoting the construction of new housing units. However, progress has been slow, and the demand for affordable and adequate housing far exceeds the supply. Many Cubans are left in precarious living conditions with overcrowded apartments and insufficient facilities. The housing shortage also has broader social implications. It affects quality of life and contributes to disparities between different socioeconomic groups. Those living in deteriorating buildings often face additional challenges, such as limited access to basic services and inadequate living conditions. Black market economy. A robust black market economy has emerged due to persistent shortages of goods and restrictive economic conditions in Cuba. The black market, or informal economy, thrives as a result of limitations on the availability of essential products and services, creating an alternative system for obtaining items that are otherwise scarce or difficult to access through official channels. The shortages of basic goods, such as food, medicine, and household items, are a significant driver of the black market. With limited supply and high demand, individuals turn to informal networks to acquire these necessities. On the black market, goods and services are often available at inflated prices compared to their official costs, reflecting the scarcity and high demand. Many Cubans rely on the black market for everyday needs, including items that are not available through state-controlled stores or are subject to rationing. For instance, in the absence of sufficient food supplies in government-run shops, people may turn to the black market to purchase a wider variety of foodstuffs, often at higher prices. The black market also encompasses a range of services, from housing repairs to transportation. Due to the inadequacies in state-provided services and infrastructure, individuals might engage in informal transactions to address their needs, bypassing official channels that may be inefficient or unavailable. The existence of a black market can have several effects on the Cuban economy and society. Economically, it undermines the effectiveness of state-controlled pricing and distribution systems. Socially, it can lead to disparities in access to goods and services, as those with the means to participate in the black market can secure better quality or more diverse products, while others may struggle with shortages. Additionally, the black market often operates outside the purview of government regulations, which can lead to issues such as unregulated pricing, quality control problems, and illegal acts. The Cuban government has made efforts to curb black market activities, but the persistent economic challenges and the widespread nature of the informal economy make it a difficult issue to fully address. State control over employment. The Cuban government exerts significant control over employment opportunities, which profoundly impacts the job market and workers' lives. Most employment is concentrated within state-run enterprises, leaving limited room for private sector involvement and entrepreneurship. The majority of Cubans work in state-owned businesses or government positions. These state-run jobs span various sectors, including education, healthcare, transportation, and manufacturing. Despite the essential nature of these roles, wages in state jobs are generally low, often insufficient to meet the cost of living. Employees in state positions receive fixed salaries that are not always adjusted in accordance with inflation or economic changes, leading to financial difficulties for many. The state's dominance over employment also extends to the regulation of job roles and conditions. The government manages job assignments, and workers typically have little say in their specific employment conditions or job locations. This centralized control can limit career advancement opportunities and personal job satisfaction. Private enterprise in Cuba faces significant restrictions and regulatory hurdles. While some forms of private business have been allowed since economic reforms began in the early 2010s, the scope of permissible private activities is narrow. Private businesses must adhere to strict regulations, including limitations on the types of services and products they can offer and the size of the workforce they can employ. Entrepreneurs and small business owners must navigate a complex regulatory environment, which includes obtaining government licenses and complying with numerous bureaucratic requirements. The government also imposes limitations on the amount of profit that can be generated and reinvested. These restrictions aim to control and monitor private economic activities, but can stifle growth and innovation. Limited freedom of movement. In Cuba, citizens face substantial restrictions when it comes to traveling abroad. The Cuban government controls international movement by requiring individuals to obtain an exit visa before they can leave the country. This process is fraught with bureaucratic hurdles and significant costs, making it challenging for many Cubans to travel internationally. To begin with, Cubans must apply for an exit visa through a lengthy and often complex bureaucratic process. Applicants need to provide various documents, including proof of the purpose of their trip, such as tourism, business, or visiting family. Additionally, they must demonstrate sufficient financial means to cover the cost of the trip and sometimes secure an invitation from a host abroad. The financial burden of this process is considerable. The fees for the exit visa itself, combined with expenses such as travel insurance and flight tickets, can be prohibitively expensive. This cost makes international travel a luxury that is out of reach for many Cubans. Even if permission is granted, there are often additional restrictions on travel. The government may impose conditions on the duration of the stay abroad or the specific purpose of the trip. Failure to adhere to these conditions can lead to penalties, including difficulties with future travel or repercussions upon returning to Cuba. Number 13. Cuban healthcare. Cuba is internationally recognized for its healthcare system, which boasts an extensive network of medical facilities and a focus on preventive care. The country's healthcare system emphasizes accessibility and equality, providing medical services to all citizens regardless of their economic status. However, despite these strengths, Cuba's healthcare system faces significant challenges, particularly concerning shortages of medical supplies and equipment. The Cuban government has made healthcare a priority, resulting in a well-developed infrastructure that includes a high number of doctors and healthcare professionals relative to the population. The country has a robust primary care system, with an emphasis on preventative measures and community health. Health outcomes in Cuba, such as life expectancy and infant mortality rates, are often cited as indicators of the system's success. However, the healthcare system is not without its problems. Chronic shortages of medical supplies and equipment are a major issue. Due to a combination of factors, including the U.S. economic embargo and economic constraints, Cuba often struggles to procure necessary medical materials. Essential items such as medications, surgical instruments, and diagnostic equipment are sometimes in short supply, affecting the quality of care available. These shortages can lead to delays in treatment and difficulties in providing adequate care for patients. For example, the lack of certain medications can result in suboptimal management of chronic conditions, and outdated or malfunctioning equipment can hinder diagnostic accuracy and the effectiveness of medical procedures. Number 12. Education system challenges. Cuba is known for having a strong education system, characterized by its emphasis on universal access and high literacy rates. The country boasts a high level of educational attainment, with a significant percentage of the population receiving education at various levels. However, despite these achievements, Cuba's education system faces notable challenges that impact the quality of education. One of the primary issues is the low salaries of teachers. Although education is highly valued in Cuban society, the wages for educators are often insufficient relative to the cost of living. Teachers frequently earn modest salaries that do not reflect their qualifications, experience, or the demanding nature of their work. This disparity can lead to financial difficulties for educators and may impact their motivation and job satisfaction. In addition to low salaries, the education system in Cuba suffers from a lack of resources. Schools often face shortages of essential materials and equipment, such as textbooks, computers, and laboratory supplies. These resource constraints can limit the effectiveness of teaching and hinder students' learning experiences. For instance, outdated or insufficient educational materials can restrict students' access to up-to-date information and technological tools that are critical for a modern education. The lack of resources also affects the infrastructure of educational institutions. Many schools are in need of repairs and upgrades, which can further detract from the learning environment. Inadequate facilities can affect students' comfort and concentration, as well as their overall educational experience. Number 11. Alcohol and tobacco monopolies. In Cuba, the government maintains strict control over the production and distribution of alcohol and tobacco. This centralized control has significant implications for the availability, variety, and pricing of these products. The Cuban government operates monopolies on both alcohol and tobacco through state-run enterprises. This means that all production, importation, and distribution of these goods are managed by government agencies or state-owned companies. For example, Major brands of Cuban rum and cigars are produced and distributed exclusively by state-run entities, such as the Corporación Cemex for rum and the Habanos SAA for cigars. As a result of these monopolies, the variety of alcohol and tobacco products available in Cuba is limited. The range of options for both locals and tourists is constrained by the products approved and distributed by the government. While some well-known Cuban products, like Havana Club rum and Cohiba cigars, are internationally recognized and available, other types of alcohol and tobacco, including foreign brands, are rarely accessible due to import restrictions and the focus on domestic production. The control over production and distribution also affects pricing. Government-managed enterprises set the prices for these products, which can be relatively high compared to average wages in Cuba. Although there are some affordable options, particularly for locally produced goods, high-end products such as premium cigars can be prohibitively expensive for the average Cuban. Additionally, the government's pricing strategy can lead to discrepancies between the cost of products for locals and tourists, with the latter often paying higher prices in tourist areas or international markets. Furthermore, the lack of competition within these monopolies can lead to issues such as inconsistent quality and limited innovation. Without market competition, there is less incentive for improvements in product quality or diversity. Number 10. Environmental degradation. Despite its stunning natural beauty and rich biodiversity, Cuba grapples with significant environmental challenges that threaten its ecological balance. Key issues include deforestation, pollution, and other forms of environmental degradation. Deforestation is a major concern as forests are cleared for agriculture, urban development, and infrastructure projects. This loss of forest cover leads to reduced habitat for wildlife, increased soil erosion, and diminished water retention, which exacerbates flooding and affects water quality. Pollution further compounds these problems, with industrial activities and outdated technologies contributing to air and water contamination. The burning of fossil fuels and inefficient industrial processes release pollutants into the atmosphere, compromising air quality and public health. Additionally, agricultural runoff, sewage, and industrial waste pollute freshwater resources and coastal areas, impacting marine and terrestrial ecosystems. Cuba's economic constraints significantly exacerbate these environmental issues. The country's financial difficulties limit its ability to invest in modern environmental technologies and infrastructure. This lack of resources hampers efforts to implement effective waste management systems, invest in renewable energy, and enforce stringent environmental regulations. Without adequate funding, large-scale reforestation projects and comprehensive pollution control measures remain challenging to execute. The impact of these environmental problems extends beyond ecological harm, affecting local communities. Biodiversity loss, reduced water quality, and increased health risks are tangible consequences for Cuban residents. Moreover, the degradation of natural resources threatens sectors crucial to the economy, such as tourism and agriculture. Addressing these environmental challenges requires a balanced approach that integrates development with sustainability, ensuring that Cuba's natural resources are preserved for future generations while supporting economic growth and ecological health. Number 9. Payment confusion. The most common question you will encounter when in Cuba is, how can I pay you in Cuba? This question extends beyond just paying with cash or cards, as people are puzzled by the existence of 4 different currencies. In 2021, the Cuban government unified 2 national currencies in circulation domestically: the Cuban peso and the convertible peso pegged to the dollar and exchangeable for other foreign currencies. The idea behind this was to make the island's economy, long restricted under tight state control, where the government owns and manages most enterprises, more attractive to foreign investors. Instead, 4 currencies were introduced. This further weakens the economy as they distort prices in relation to each other. Depending on the restaurant, store, or service, people can pay with Cuban pesos, dollars, euros, or MLC, a virtual currency introduced by the government in 2019. MLC is used by loading dollars onto a card. This card can only be used to purchase goods at state-run stores. However, they cannot be exchanged back into dollars in cash form. Cuban pesos also suffer from 2 official exchange rates, one for businesses and one for individuals. Additionally, There's a third unofficial rate where $1 can be exchanged for more pesos on the street. What do you think about Cuba's payment system? Comment below. Number 8. Cuban cigars are extremely expensive. Cigars are a luxury item representing freedom and power, especially favored by the upper class. One of the places with the best quality cigars in the world is Cuba. Cigars are a type of dried and rolled tobacco tightly wrapped into cigars. Cigars are much larger than cigarettes. Cuba grows a considerable amount of tobacco. Habano cigars are the highest quality cigars in the world, available in over 150 countries and becoming a symbol of the country for over 200 years. The cigar-making culture in Cuba has remained unchanged. Each leaf is checked for variety, shape, and quality, and is handed over to highly skilled cigar rollers who are highly respected in Cuban society. Cuban cigars originated in the 1960s, associated with a bodyguard of Fidel Castro named Benvenido Chico Perez. After trying this type of cigar, he inquired about the cigar maker named Eduardo Rera. From the raw materials to the techniques used to make it, Fidel Castro then sought a group of rollers, along with Eduardo Rera, to a former castle on the outskirts of Havana to build a small factory specializing in this special type of cigar. Cuban cigars are renowned as the finest tobacco products in the world. A box of high-quality habanos can cost thousands of dollars. The reason for their high price is that each Cuban cigar goes through about 500 handmade tasks from seed to rolled cigar to become perfect. Every year, Habanos S.A., the exclusive distributor of Cuban cigars in over 150 countries, hosts a cigar festival in the capital city of La Habana for 5 days to introduce and showcase premium products. This is where the most famous Cuban cigar brands like Cohiba, Partagas, H. Upmann, Romeo y Julieta, and Montecristo gather. The festival attracts the interest of cigar enthusiasts from over 70 countries worldwide. In addition to enjoying or purchasing cigars, visitors also have the opportunity to visit the most famous tobacco farms in Pinar del Rio province, western Cuba. Tourists can witness master cigar rollers at work and, if they wish, even roll a cigar for themselves. Have you tried Cuban cigars yet? Would you like to try them? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Number 7. Cubans are highly spiritual. Cubans also believe in saints, and one of the most revered figures is Saint Lazarus. Legend has it that while still in the earthly realm, Saint Lazarus was afflicted with sores, causing many to shun him. Stray dogs would come and lick his wounds, miraculously healing them. Consequently, the image of Saint Lazarus is often that of a man wearing tattered yellow clothes and a wide-brimmed hat, accompanied by a pack of dogs. Cubans often place his statue in a corner of their homes. Every day, they leave loose change near it. On December 17th, St. Lazarus's Day, they collect all that money to buy wine, candles, sweets, and cigarettes for offerings. Those with disabilities often place a picture of St. Lazarus in front of their seats. Moreover, Cubans have many other spiritual beliefs. For elderly couples, if one of them passes away, Cubans will take a string used to measure the height of the deceased partner, cut it, and place that segment into the casket of the deceased. They believe that by doing so, the deceased will not drag the living partner along. Additionally, if one accidentally steps on horse manure, Cubans consider it lucky. However, since horses are a common mode of transportation in Cuban provinces, with horse manure littering the roads, this might bring lifelong luck. A rather interesting aspect is that Cuban students often engage in charm playing. If they know the name of a teacher before exams, they often write the teacher's name on a piece of paper and place it in the freezer to ensure passing the exam. I haven't seen such a charming charm-playing tradition elsewhere. Furthermore, the majority of Cubans aspire to travel abroad, to turn this dream into reality in the new year, on New Year's Eve. They take their suitcases out onto the street as if going on a real trip. This belief is so widespread that in Cuba, after New Year's Eve, you'll see many people walking the streets carrying suitcases. Sometimes, they even form processions with someone leading the way, banging a drum, cheerfully followed by a line of people carrying suitcases, strolling through the streets. What do you think about these beliefs in Cuba? Leave your comments below. Number 6. Cuban immigration to other countries. For decades, Cuba has restricted the immigration of its citizens, And many Cubans living abroad complain about bureaucratic obstacles and hefty fees to maintain ties and renew documents with their homeland. In just 1 year, from 2021 to 2022, over 270,000 Cubans, equivalent to 2.5% of the country's population, were apprehended by its authorities while attempting to illegally cross into the U.S. This was seen as a massive wave of Cuban migration that the U.S. had to deal with, a record migration amid the worst economic crisis in decades. Since no visa is required to enter Nicaragua, many opt to fly or take boats to Nicaragua, then pay human trafficking networks to smuggle them into the U.S. The total cost can go up to $7,000 per person, while the average monthly wage in Cuba is only $157. Cubans leave their country in search of better living conditions amidst the island nation experiencing its most severe economic crisis since the 1990s. The exodus from this island has added tension to an already near-collapsed economy and burdened Cuban society, with many families breaking up and dispersing around the world. Number 5. Horse-drawn carriages and bicycles are the main modes of transport. Cuba's traffic laws are extremely strict, so drivers are very cautious, rarely exceeding 110 km/h. This makes them hesitant to overtake other vehicles, even a horse-drawn carriage, if there's another car approaching in the opposite direction within visible range. At a railway crossing, even if it's abandoned, drivers still stop, look both ways, and then let the car cross. At all intersections, if there's a yellow triangular sign that says "Perry Stop," upon reaching it, drivers must stop for a few seconds. There are quite a few traffic police stations along the road, and everywhere you must present your documents, even if it's just a directive to drive very carefully. On the highways, there are mostly cars and very few motorcycles. In rural areas, horse-drawn carriages and bicycles are still the main modes of transportation. Moreover, if you're traveling on Cuban roads, it's very common to see the interesting sight of people hailing for rides quite densely and many drivers stopping to offer rides. This is because Cuban traffic laws stipulate that vehicles with blue license plates, which signify government vehicles, are obliged to give rides to hitchhikers without demanding anything in return. In Havana, if the police catch a driver refusing a ride while their vehicle is capable of carrying passengers and on the same route as the hitchhiker, they're fined for sure. Due to the lack of public transportation, people waiting for buses at bus stops are quite crowded. However, there's no pushing onto the bus here. Whoever arrives first gets on first in an extremely orderly fashion, and if the bus is already full, then they wait for the next one. For Cubans, there seems to be no sense of urgency. Everything is relaxed, leisurely, and incredibly laid back. Number 5. Outdated internet. According to the Cuban government, in 2011, only 25% of the population had access to the internet. Most people didn't have internet access at home and had to go to public hotspots. Before 2018, internet access in Cuba was almost non-existent. By January 2018, there were nearly 500 public locations offering high-speed Wi-Fi access. However, home and mobile internet were still considered luxuries for the people, with internet costing $2 per hour of usage, while the average monthly wage ranged from $7 to $30. Phones capable of internet connection were sold in state-owned stores for $200. Therefore, for many years, Cubans would download data onto USB drives and share them with each other. Although mobile data is still very limited, according to Texas data, 150,000 residents out of a total population of 11 million access the internet daily. The internet scarcity in Cuba is not only due to the policies of the current government, but also because of the long-standing US embargo, which prevents US companies from operating in Cuba. Apple and Google app stores also don't allow downloads by Cuban users. Apps like Skype and WhatsApp are blocked, and people can only access Facebook through the web version. What do you think about this situation in Cuba? Share your thoughts below. Many hotels in Cuba are run down. Not all of Cuba's tourist infrastructure is as advertised. The economic crisis has also affected business operations here, despite allocating a large portion of public investment to build more hotels. The housing supply on the island is among the worst in the world. Cuba has hotels, restaurants, and shambles, and scarce essentials, and the worst quality rental tourism services. Moreover, if you go to Cuba, you'll see images of dilapidated buildings all over the tourist trail. These images conceal a painful reality of the country. Cuban people have endured a housing crisis for decades. Lack of investment in public works, restoration of architectural heritage, water services, lighting, sanitation, and waste collection has turned Cuban towns and cities into unhealthy and dangerous environments, sometimes with deadly collapses. Number 2. Selling Coca-Cola used to be illegal. Are you a fan of Coca-Cola? If so, you might find Cuba's stance on this popular soft drink quite intriguing. For nearly 60 years, the sale of Coca-Cola was banned in Cuba, making it one of the few countries in the world with such a prohibition, alongside North Korea. This ban was implemented shortly after the Cuban Revolution in 1959, as part of a broader policy to eliminate Western influence and reduce reliance on foreign products. During the decades of the Coca-Cola ban, Cubans had to make do with local alternatives. The most notable substitute was a drink called Tu-Cola, which was produced domestically and available in both cans and plastic bottles. Despite being a popular choice among locals, Tu-Cola never quite matched the global appeal of Coca-Cola. In 2015, after nearly 6 decades of prohibition, the Cuban government lifted the ban on Coca-Cola, allowing it to be sold again in the country. However, the soft drink is still a rarity on the island. It is primarily available through special imports, often at a significantly higher price due to shipping costs and import duties. For instance, Coca-Cola imported from Mexico can sometimes be found in select stores, but it is sold at double the price of local alternatives, making it a luxury item for many Cubans. Interestingly, while finding a bottle of Coca-Cola or even a bottle of water can be a challenge in Cuba, other beverages like rum are readily available. Rum is a staple in Cuban culture and is widely sold in stores across the island. This reflects the country's unique approach to beverage availability, influenced by historical policies and economic conditions. The contrast between the scarcity of soft drinks and the abundance of rum underscores the complex interplay between Cuban domestic policies and consumer habits. Number 2. Cuba bans the use of Fidel Castro's name for titles and awards. In 2016, the Cuban National Assembly enacted a significant law aimed at shaping the legacy of Fidel Castro, the iconic leader of the Cuban Revolution. This law reflects Castro's own wishes to avoid a cult of personality surrounding him, a sentiment he consistently expressed during his lifetime. The law specifically bans the use of Fidel Castro's name for naming public buildings, squares, parks, boulevards, streets, and other public places. It also prohibits the creation of memorials, statues, and commemorative signs that feature his image or name. This measure aligns with Castro's desire to avoid excessive glorification and to prevent his personal legacy from overshadowing broader national and revolutionary goals. According to the law, no new medals, honors, or prestigious titles can be named after Fidel Castro, further reinforcing the intention to move away from a personality cult. The Cuban government has implemented these restrictions to respect Castro's expressed wishes and to ensure that the focus remains on the principles and achievements of the Cuban Revolution rather than on the individual himself. However, the law does provide some flexibility. It allows artists and creators to use Fidel Castro's image and name in various forms of artistic expression, including literature, music, dance, and visual arts. This provision acknowledges Castro's role in Cuban history and culture while respecting his desire to avoid overt veneration. Public events, such as commemorations or celebrations, are not restricted by this law concerning the use of Castro's image or references to his revolutionary career. This means that while public monuments and official names are restricted, the portrayal of Castro in cultural and public contexts is still permitted, allowing for a nuanced representation of his legacy. Best time to travel to Cuba? The ideal time to visit Cuba largely hinges on your preferences for weather, crowd levels, and pricing. For the most pleasant experience, plan your trip between November and April. This period marks the dry season, characterized by warm, sunny days, lower humidity, and minimal rainfall, making it perfect for exploring the island and enjoying its beautiful beaches. Daytime temperatures typically range from the mid-70s to mid-80s Fahrenheit 24-30 deg, providing comfortable conditions for sightseeing and outdoor activities. This peak tourist season attracts visitors from around the world, so you can expect more vibrant cultural events and festivals during these months. However, it's also the most expensive time to travel, with higher prices for flights and accommodations. If you prefer a quieter experience and lower travel costs, consider visiting during the shoulder months of May and October. While these months may bring occasional rain showers and slightly higher humidity, the weather remains warm and enjoyable. The lower tourist volume during these months means reduced prices for hotels and flights, as well as fewer crowds at popular attractions. This can offer a more relaxed and authentic Cuban experience, giving you the chance to explore the island at a more leisurely pace. It's important to note that the period from June to November is hurricane season in the Caribbean, with September and October being the most active months for storms. While the risk of hurricanes can vary, it's wise to monitor weather forecasts closely and have contingency plans if traveling during these months. As we wrap up Part 2 of the Hidden Secrets of Cuba, Top 21 Shocking Secrets You Need to Know, it's clear that this vibrant island nation holds far more complexity than meets the eye. From the dual currency system and black market economy to the challenges faced in daily life and governmental control, we've peeled back layers to reveal the hidden truths about Cuba. These insights not only offer a deeper understanding of the country, but also highlight the stark contrast between its picturesque image and the realities of life on the ground. If you found these revelations eye-opening, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with friends who might be interested in learning more about Cuba's hidden side. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth explorations and compelling content. Your support helps us bring more fascinating stories and uncover the secrets of the world. Stay tuned for more, and thanks for watching. See you in the next video.